So when it comes to birding destinations, there's no question that you take Costa Rica and Panama and Colombia and Ecuador and even Peru up here, much better known birding destinations, and poor little Argentina way in the south down here, very, very huge country, and it's not as well known as a birding destination. And I hope I can change your mind a little bit on that. I'm going to start out by just going to AVBase. This is a database of birds all across the world and numbers like that. And if you look here, it says this source, and it does change somewhat with sources, says there's almost 1,100 different species of birds in Argentina, and 16 of them are endemic. Well, what I'm going to suggest to you is that 16 that are endemic are like this one. Every bird I'm going to show you is one that we got a picture of ourselves. So this is a Moreno's dove. You can see by the observations in the picture, it's not one that a lot of people get pictures of. And this is an endemic to Argentina. It's only found in Argentina up in the highlands. So the only place you're going to find it. But there are other birds that I'm going to call regional endemics. So this is a rufous-headed brush finch, and we got this bird as well. He's not a country endemic, but he is definitely a regional endemic, and you're only going to find him up in the highlands of the Andes. So up in this dry, brushy area up here. So in Argentina or Bolivia, you're not going to find him in one of those other popular birding destinations. And so that's the highlands, and this is the Yungas, and this is also a unique area in here. And this is a Yungas rock pigeon. Again, I've seen it by different names, but he lives only in Bolivia and Argentina in the Yungas area. So this is the foothills of the Andes. It's quite thick brush. It's subtropical rainforests. So we have high altitude, we have foothills, and then we have here more lowlands. And I'm just going to show this one. Spotback puffbird, and I went here just because you will see that they give it a different name when I click on it. And this one is definitely not a country endemic, and he's found in a number of countries, but he's not found in those popular birding destinations. And I'm going to suggest that in Argentina, where we found him, is one of the easier places to find that bird. So when it comes to Argentina, in this area, I'm going to go back to this one here and just show you. So you will fly into Buenos Aires. Almost all international flights come into Buenos Aires. From there, it's a simple little 2-hour flight to the north. And if you go to the north, we spent most of our time in here, a little bit into the highlands, and a little bit into some Chaco area here. But if you take the northern portion of Argentina, this is where the majority of the birds are found. So just in through here, so you don't have to go through the whole country. There are unique ones in the south, of course, but this is where the majority are, and so it's easy to get to. The roads are decent, and there's lots of flights at reasonable prices around here. So we spent most of our time in this mountainous area. Somewhere in here, we went as far as El Fuerte. So some of the pictures of the area. This is one of their cabins. They have several cabins that people can stay at. This one has multiple rooms. It has a kitchen area. It's even air conditioned, so decent accommodations. But you can see that it is a wild area, and we used the lights of the vehicle to light up the building, and there is no light pollution, so we took a night shot. This is what the area is like. So it's taken from down in the valley, and you can see it's surrounded by mountains. These mountains in this Yungas can get up to 3,000 meters. It's considered the foothills of the Andes, but they're still relatively high. But they are treed all the way to the top. So this is one of the roads going up on their property. It is subtropical rainforest. And this is just to give you an idea what to expect. And again, the mountainous areas are treed pretty much all the way to the top. You'll find one type of bird at the bottom, different in the middle, and a different bird yet at the top of the mountains. This is one of the ravines that we went into. The brown swift that I'll show you is in one of these deep crevices. Again, you got to know where they live to find them. You can see the people down here. You can see how deep this ravine was, and a cut through the mountains. They have a side-by-side. They can take people up these trails. You can walk up them if you want to. They They are fairly steep in places, so if you are not able to walk, they can take you up to see the different areas and the different birds that you will see in the different areas. So now I'm going to show the birds. So I'm going to read out the name. You can read it across the top. If you want to find out whether they're regional endemics, I invite you to explore that on your own. So where we stayed up in the mountain a little bit, one day it was around 30 degrees, so it was quite hot up there. But then we went down into the valley and to a pond that was down there, and we got these black-bellied whistling ducks. And it was over 40 degrees when we were down there. It was extremely hot. And the heat haze was so bad that my camera wouldn't even autofocus. That's why it's not very sharp. Black-capped warbling finch. A blue and yellow tanager. And you can see it is a subtropical rainforest, and this one was in the rain. A blue tufted starthroat, and there are a number of hummingbirds. They have feeders there. A blue crowned trogon. A bran collared flycatcher. A buff necked ibis, and again he was down in that really hot valley, so again lots of heat haze. Burrowing owl, and this guy posed on a tree. This is an uncropped image. They just sat there and looked at us. A Chaco chacalaca. A cinnamon flycatcher. Crested caracara. A crested orapengula. A dark-billed cuckoo. A double-collared seed eater. A giant wood rail. A golden-billed saltator. A golden olive woodpecker. A great antshrike. A great rufous woodcreeper. A green-cheeked parakeet. A gray-cowled woodrail. An ultramarine grosbeak, and they are just so bright blue. A giro cuckoo. A moss-backed sparrow. A mitrid parakeet, pair of them. A narrow-billed woodcreeper with a little worm. An ochre-cheeked toady flycatcher, and he was a real challenge to get. He's about the length of my thumb. Plush-crested jay. Purple-throated euphonia, and this is highly cropped image. Red-crested finch, and again quite a crop on this one. A red-legged seriema. This one is a Rothschild swift, and this is a really difficult bird to get. He hides in the shadows, and my ISO was 12,800, and I still had to lighten the bird up a lot. That's why he's not quite as detailed as I'd like to see. But if you go online and look, this is a regional endemic between Argentina and Brazil, the only place in the world you're going to find it, and nobody has really good pictures of it. Rufous-capped antshrike. A rufous-fronted thornbird. A Sayaka tanager. Spot-backed puffbird. A Tatuupa tinamou, And if you go online, there's not a lot of good pictures of this guy because he just ran across the road and he doesn't give you much time for pictures. He hides. Tropical screech owl. Turkey vulture. Two-banded warbler. A variable antshrike. A white-barred piculette, again a really tiny bird. A white-faced ibis. And just a note on this, when I did some research on this, there is one that comes to North America and one comes to South America. They look almost exactly the same, but they actually do not interbreed. White-faced whistling duck. A white mojita. A white-throated tyrannulet. Yellow-billed teal. A yellow-browed tyrant. A Yungas dove. Again, I think he was called Yungas rock pigeon, and so he goes by several names. A Yungas swan. And of course, this isn't a bird, but just had to show these are tarantulas, and they're almost the size of my hand, and they were fairly common and scary for a lot of people, I think, just because of their size. And they can give you a nasty bite, but they're not poisonous and they're not going to kill you. This was an interesting, and the reason I had to show this was a tarantula hawk wasp, and this wasp is about the width of the length is about the width of my hand, and he actually attacks those tarantulas, stings them and paralyzes them, and lays their eggs in the tarantulas. So this is a tarantula killer. So about halfway through our stay at Eco Portal de Piedra, Silvio and Carlos took us for a trip through the highlands. So again, you have to follow the road. You can't go over the mountains. You go around them, come up through San Salvador, and we stopped here at Lagunas de Yala. And this is actually still Yungas. It's heavily forested area, as you can see, but this is getting to be a higher altitude, and because it's a higher altitude, you get a different kind of bird. So we spent a few hours there, then we continued on up, and we stopped at Puna, and this is a tourist town, and we spent the night there, and I will show some pictures of a very interesting little town. Next day we got up and we continued up highway number 9, and we stopped at Iturbe. This is not a tourist town. Very few people will ever go there, but Carlos knew that there was an endemic Argentine bird, and I will point it out when I show you the pictures. We got it in here plus a few other birds. Then we went back on the highway up to this town called Abrapampa. Now these two towns are at about 3,500 meters. The road goes even higher, so there are places where the road itself approaches 4,000 meters. But it's paved all the way, and it's actually in excellent shape. So why do people go to Abrapampa? Most people that go up there will continue on up to this high altitude lake called Laguna de Pozuelo. And the reason they go there, high altitude water birds that are only found in the high Andes, and this is the best place in the world to see them. But as you can see, it takes you an extra 3 hours out of your way to go up and see them. What our hosts knew is that just outside of Abrapampa, there are some ponds in here. And pretty much every bird that you find in that high altitude lake, you also find in these little ponds in here. And so they took us to these ponds instead. The other advantage is the birds cannot get away from you. High altitude, in big lakes, they can swim to the middle, and it can be really difficult to photograph. So the next day we got up, or I should say the same day we went back down. We continued down to spend the night again in Pumamarca, and got up the next morning, and we went to this place called Volcan. And you can see it's very dry up here, very few trees. At Volcan, it's not forested, but there's scrubby brush. And so it's high altitude with a different type of vegetation. So guess what? You get different kinds of birds here as well. So we got a couple of birds in there that are only found in Argentina or Bolivia. And then to show the pictures. So this is Laguna de Yala area, and you can see that the roads are quite high up here. It's getting quite mountainous, and therefore you get one type of bird. This is where we spent the night in Pumamarca, and it seems quite rustic, and it is. That's deliberate. This is a tourist town, and they are keeping it that way. And why do people go here? This is the town, and you can see the hills around here. Very, very colorful mountains, and people come up here to hike. Some come to bird, but most come up just to hike. So the birds, when you see something like Andean, you know that it's going to be a high altitude bird. So this was at those ponds. So this is an Andean avocet. This is an Andean coot. These are Andean flamingos, and this is the pond, and you can see, since it's not that big, you can see why the birds are easier to get. They can't go away from you. This is one of two that we got of flamingos. This is an Andean gull, an Andean negrito. This is an ash-breasted Sierra finch, again a high-altitude bird. A band-tailed Sierra finch. We got this in Iturbe. Brown-back mockingbird, again only high-altitude bird found near Iturbe. Saguaro thrush. Chilean flamingo. So we got two types of flamingos. There is a third, but we weren't lucky enough to get the third kind. This is a fluvius-headed brush finch. We found this in the Laguna de Yala area, and this is only found in Argentina or Bolivia. Gray-hooded parakeet. This parakeet only lives in the high Andes. Helmer's pipit. Moreno's ground dove. So this is in Iturbe. This is that small town that he took us into, and this is an endemic Argentine bird. Only place you'll find it. Mountain caracara. Pampa finch. Pluvius black tyrant. Again, only Argentina or Bolivia. Puna ibis. People go all the way 3 hours up to that lake to get this bird, and we got it at those ponds just outside of Agrapampa. Puna minor. Puna tit spinetail. Red-tailed comet. Again, a high altitude only in Bolivia and Argentina. Red-backed hawk, and sometimes called variable hawk, and he may be found all the way up to Colombia. Rufous-sided warbling finch, a restricted bird to Argentina or Bolivia. Tufted tit spinetail. Yellow-billed tit tyrant. This was our walk around Pumamarca. I wish that all birds would pose like this for us. This is a Yungas sparrow, and this was in that scrubby brushland, and again, only Argentina or Bolivia, and we managed to get it in that area. Okay, we did just a half-day tour out to the Chaco region. The Chaco region of Argentina and Paraguay extends way into Paraguay over here. There's been over 500 species of birds identified in this area, so it is a bird-rich area. It was the largest forested area outside of the Amazon. Unfortunately, you can see all the patchwork of farms, and so it is getting rather deforested, which is kind of unfortunate. So we did a half-day trip out there, and we did see some birds that we didn't get in other locations. And so the list of the birds: black-backed water tyrant, a black-legged Seriema. These birds are hard to get. It was late in the evening, and so terribly high ISOs. He was in the bush, and so odd colors, but we did get him. A blue-crowned parakeet, a crested hornero, and a crown-slated flycatcher, and a many-colored Chaco finch. We did get other birds, and we had a few other birds that were hiding on us, and we just couldn't manage to get a picture of them. So look forward to maybe doing another trip there and getting some of those 500 birds. Okay, I would call this a pretty successful birding trip that we did take. Uh, just in these areas that we did go through, I'm going to suggest that we did capture at least 150 unique bird species with actual photographs. So it was successful. Having said that, I really hope we do get to go back someday, because up in this park up here, it's been estimated that as many as 50% of the birds of the entire country of Argentina live somewhere in this park. There's a whole bunch more in the Chaco. I hope we can get out there a little bit more, and maybe down into Salta a little bit. So a little bit wider range. We hope we can go next time and get even more birds. So Argentina really is a good birding destination, and this north area is definitely the prime territory.